Freemasonry is the science of symbols. To a Mason, life is a journey through the many symbols and levels of understanding along the lighted ray of his path of knowledge, morality, self-discovery, and charity. Esoteric symbols with hidden meanings are used to guide seekers to truths that both conceal and reveal. Freemasonry enlightens the seeker through symbolism used in rituals to teach allegoric lessons, using the physical construction of buildings to the metaphorical rebirth for a life of truth, honesty, and integrity. Communication involves the manipulation of symbols, and Freemasonry has made its own lexicon of symbols that reflects concepts from a variety of ancient cultural and religious sources of the Sumerians, Phoenicians, Jewish Kabbalists, Egyptian Hermeticists, Roman Greek mysteries, Gnostics, Cathars, and later Rosicrucians. At a glance, a number of intriguing structures and symbols have been found on Oak Island, such as a small stone outline triangle found near the money pit, a boulder framework of a cross known as Nolan's cross, a satellite stone carved with symbols, and allegedly a carved stone slab with 2 lines of symbols found in the money pit. Through my empirical observations, these vestiges of clues left on Oak Island appear to point to a Freemason history. The square and compass are the trademark symbols of Freemasonry. To me, Oak Island's most prominent symbol is the small stone outline triangle in the shape of a compass found near the money pit. As you will see, many of the symbols left on Oak Island today can be interpreted through the eyes of a Freemason, and what better way than to use stone to convey the messages of stonemasons. In this video, we'll examine a number of obvious and some more subtle connections of structures and symbols left on the island that any Masonic brother would immediately recognize. All the structures that I will discuss have already been explained in detail in my Oak Island Prophesies Parts 1 through 5 series on this Brothers of the Sword Productions YouTube channel. The science of geometry has great symbolic significance to the Freemasons and is considered a divine gift from the grand architect of the universe. The G inside the square and compass have been speculated to mean geometry. The stone outline triangle, if set upright, appears to be in the shape of a compass. In 1963, Arlick Walton surveyed the structure before it was destroyed for further treasure hunting excavations. Oddly enough, no one paid much attention to it, but it's good that it was surveyed for posterity. The survey discovered that the sides of the equilateral triangle are 10 feet, and the angle on the upper left is 23 degrees 26 minutes, and the upper right angle is 36 degrees 34 minutes for a total of 60 degrees. Arlick's coordinates were given in degrees, minutes, and seconds. The angle of 23 degrees 26 minutes just happens to be the tilt of the Earth, and most importantly indicates the summer and winter solstices. Freemasonry celebrates the Feast of Lights during the summer solstice, which commemorates John the Baptist, and the winter solstice commemorates St. John the Evangelist by the Feasts of Darkness in December. To the Masons, there's a balance in this duality between zeal and learned knowledge of faith, bringing about equilibrium for a well-balanced path of enlightenment. In Freemasonry, St. John the Evangelist is represented by the alchemical symbol of the pyramid, or a triangle pointing up to symbolize the spirit of fire. St. John the Baptist is represented by the alchemical symbol of an inverted pyramid, or a triangle pointing down, for water to signify spiritual and emotional love. The word compass means to measure, equal steps, or divide evenly. This compass set at 60 degrees with a circular bottom is instructing you to construct a circle and divide it into 6 60-degree sections. The physical world is a product of polarities with a union into one. When superimposed, they symbolize the perfect balance of light and dark, life and death, passion and constraint, will and emotion. Together they represent the Star of Solomon's seal, used to bind the genie that rebelled against God, and symbolizes the square and compass in the triangle form. One of the most famous solstice representation is on the Vatican St. Peter's Square, with an obelisk as a sundial that can accurately indicate midday and the two solstices. Keep in mind that Freemasonry was seeking harmony and balance, and the solstices' counterparts are the vernal and autumnal equinoxes, the time of equal day and night, to represent the important cycle of death and rebirth. The equilibrium they seek includes truth and justice that transforms the compass into another stonemason tool, the plumb bob, which is used to determine if a structure is vertical, and was one of the earliest tools used by humans for astronomy, navigation, surveying, and building, and is known to represent law and justice. Note the down-pointing sword for justice. Their lodge is considered a temple of Solomon, and they utilize Solomon's God-given wisdom of judgment. They say the Masons have a volume of sacred law that appears to be a combination of various religious teachings. Now let's interpret the opposing triangles from another perspective. The two opposing triangles can represent the letters AV or AU, taking into consideration V and U were synonymous at the time. AV more precisely represents the square and compass. If we interpret them as AU, they translate into the abbreviation of Architect of the Universe, which is usually abbreviated as GAOTU for the Grand Architect of the Universe, with the G for grand found inside the square and compass. Although Freemasonry is not a religion, they prescribe in the belief of a supreme being, reverence for a creator, the grand architect of the universe. To become a member, initiates must believe in such a supreme being to get through the door. The word architect is Latin for architectus, which comes from the Greek word architecton, with archi meaning to be the first and tecton meaning artisan, craftsman, or builder. Therefore, the literal translation for the architect of the universe is the first builder of the universe, thus representing the supreme being. The word universe means uni for one, and verse for the Latin word vertera, with just vert meaning to turn. Therefore, the word universe translates into turn into one. Put all these ideas together for the architect of the universe, and it translates into first builder that turns into one, and the word grand imposes authority. The progression of the nature of things is to impose order. The word cosmos extends the idea of universe to mean an ordered and arranged harmonious whole. This is where the universe turns into one from the power of the first builder. The G nestled in the square and compass could mean glory, for the Latin word gloria means to praise and honor. In Freemasonry, the triangle is the symbol of the supreme architect of the universe, the creator, and when surrounded by rays of glory, it becomes the symbol of the architect of the supreme being who bestows light. The tilt of the Earth's axis relative to the plane of its orbit around the Sun has an ordered apparent upward and downward movement of the Sun between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. The invariable course of the planets, phases of the moon, and the eternal cycle of the yearly solstices and equinoxes constitutes the most striking demonstrations of the order that reigns in nature. Order out of chaos reflects an act of creation. In other words, the act of creation itself is the process of introducing the circle or cycles of order. Order then lies at the base of reason and logic. The science of creation is the divinity of order. Order is the mark of the Mason, as order implies an objective, and is the name of their fraternity, Order. Through his words, men will find life. It's incredibly interesting how the rock outline of a compass has expanded into the concepts that construct a number of messages. Nevertheless, nothing is left to chance in this decoding, and the instructions to construct two opposing triangles are repeated 2 more times on the symbols that are on the stone slab, which I translated earlier in my Oak Island Prophesy series. Visually, the sun follows a path from the summer to winter solstices, swaying between the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn, and the equinoxes are in the center when the sun crosses the celestial equator and the equatorial plane. At the Earth's equator, the sun is directly overhead during the equinoxes. I made the following illustrations as visuals for the Prophesy series. You see the X shape depicting the solstices, and the line along the poles is the equinoxes. This can also be represented by the letter H with a line through it for the equinoxes. As you can see, the church is hip on this configuration. The letter Z or S can be added to represent the traverse of the sun. These are simplified representations but effective to visually understand what's happening. Now let's find the instructions for the opposing triangles on the stone slab supposedly found in the money pit. The first two symbol groups in line 1 on the carved stone instruct you to draw two opposing triangles superimposed on each other. Let's start with the second group on line 1 that has two opposing triangles with 4 dots between them. In my decoding, this group translates into the word find, with in indicating to put the two surrounding triangles in the dotted square. Now let's go back to the first group and follow the instructions to construct the two opposing triangles from the two V symbols. The first two V's in the first group are half of the two superimposed triangles, and adding the other half looks like this. However, the two X's are an illusion, as you can see, and from another perspective, they look like this. Now let's turn our attention back to the tilt of the Earth angle, 23 degrees 26 minutes, and convert it from degrees and minutes into what is called decimal degrees, using the simple equation found at the bottom of this slide, which converts the angle into 23.4 decimal degrees. The axial tilt of the Earth deviates between 22.1 to 24.5 decimal degrees in a 41,000-year cycle, and today it is slowly decreasing. The tilt of the Earth has more influence on the seasons than the distance from the sun or the amount of daylight the Earth receives from the sun. However, who constructed the stone outline triangle wants you to switch the numbers around from 23 degrees 26 minutes to 26 degrees 23 minutes and then convert them to decimal degrees, which is 26.38 decimal degrees rounded off is 26.4 decimal degrees. The 26.4 decimal degree angle is how the numbers are represented for a possible treasure location. That is, if I'm not missing any clues. The magic numbers 264 are the keys to a possible location of interest on Oak Island. Nolan's cross is outlined by 6 oddly spaced boulders, and if you turn all the measurements in feet between the boulders into minutes and convert them into decimal degrees, they add up to 26.39, which rounds off to 26.4 decimal degrees. My final location of a possible treasure is from opposing equilateral triangles with the height of 2,640 feet. Nolan's cross, which also signifies a sword, was swung in a circular motion to align with true north and the equinoxes, and was used as a reference to the opposing triangles. The Vesica Pisces of these opposing triangles with circumscribed circles reveals the Eye of Providence. I've often wondered if the depiction of the Eye of Providence on the United States dollar bills are missing an opposing triangle. Another number game to find the number 264 is using the 7,920 mile diameter of the Earth. When 7,920 is divided by 3, it equals 2,640. This was using the Great Circle concept used by navigators with the diameter at the equator of the Earth. For further explanation of my use of diameters and radiuses, refer to Part 5 of the Oak Island Prophesy series. In fact, I found the number 264 4 different ways for a location of interest of a possible treasure. This isn't my first rodeo finding an angle that represents the solstice for a possible location of interest. In my René Le Chateau video, the same X with a line through it was discovered with the central equinox line the reference point. However, the angle used was 22.6 decimal degrees, which is smaller than today's tilt of the Earth. However, it falls well within the range of 22.1 to 24.5 decimal degrees of known axial tilts. As an aside, I stumbled across a somewhat similar alchemist symbol of opposing triangles with a cross and a circle. This was found on the title page of an early 17th century manuscript titled The Golden Age Restored by Henricus Madatinus, and this symbol was also constructed on the lintel of a doorway in France. Now let's move away from the solstice and equinox theories and draw our attention to the last symbol group on the Oak Island stone that translates into the Middle English word betray, which is missing the E after the B. I took the BTR abbreviation to mean brother, which in their fraternal order is one who has taken an oath of mutual support. Digging further, I found the Masonic abbreviation BT means burial treasure in modern English, and in Middle English it would have been burial tresor. Treasure is from the Latin word thesaurus and the Greek word thesauros, meaning treasure or treasury. Words gave us our humanness. A thesaurus today is a list or a dictionary of words with similar meanings. The power of naming things is exclusively human. Thus, words are magical keys to the condition of our existence. The word following the abbreviation BT for the possible translation of burial treasure is the Middle English word ray. Freemasonry considered rays symbolic of the divine light or the glory of God, but in this instance it could mean radius, which doesn't necessarily mean a circle, but is defined as the maximum distance between any 2 points. Therefore, the location of interest is half of the height of 2,640 feet of the opposing triangles to focus on the 1,320-foot center. Another take on the BT abbreviation is for the Latin word butus, meaning blessed. Therefore, BT ray could mean blessed ray. The Masonic blazing star has been declared to be a symbol of the divine providence, Star of Bethlehem, prudence, beauty, and the sun. As is quoted by the Masons, the blazing star, our glory in the center, refers us to the sun, which enlightens the earth with its fulgent rays, dispersing its blessings to mankind at large, and giving light to life of all things here below. Rays of glory are symbolic of the power of the Supreme Being to penetrate the innermost reaches of the human heart with spirituality and illumination. Now let's refer back to the first symbol group, which translates into ord for origin, word as in thesaurus for treasure, as well as the divine truth, and sword that is pointing to a location of interest. Nolan's cross can also be considered a sword. Interestingly enough, before entering the lodge or a Masonic meeting, one must pass the outer guard holding a Tyler's sword. Therefore, the translation of sword, word, and ord could mean that you have to pass by the sword to a point of origin to a possible treasure. The mythological Greek architect Daedalus was the creator of the first compass and the inventor of King Minos' famous labyrinth. And labyrinth I believe I found. The numbers began to blossom into sequences from the diameters of the earth, moon, and planets, and applying the Greek number system from their alphabet that were interpreted from the translated symbols into letters. I couldn't ignore that I kept finding harmonic numbers, which made a poetic statement of walking the sacred space of a labyrinth to a possible location of interest, with the first two V's on the stone interpreted as a Roman numeral 5 for 55. Thus 55 ord means 55 origin, which is the center of the labyrinth. The 4 dots with a cardinal cross inside the center of the satellite stone was what cued me off. This configuration is the seed to a labyrinth that allows you to construct a labyrinth around it. The connection of labyrinths to the Freemasons is inherent because many churches have labyrinths constructed on the inside flooring or outside church grounds for those unable to make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. The famous Parisian Chartres Cathedral 9-circuit labyrinth is most famous and also interestingly brings the magic number 9 that we most likely will discuss in the next video. I found the use of the Greek number alphabet system quite useful. In fact, the word sword equals 360 for the degrees of a circle. And plugging back into the ideal of solstices and equinoxes, a cardinal cross signifies Cancer and Capricorn that represents the solstices, and Aries and Libra that represents the equinoxes. While mulling over the H on the satellite stone, my mind wandered to the idea of hinge, meaning to hang, hook, or turn, then to door or doorway. In my Prophesy series, the H and 4 dots with the cardinal cross was interpreted as the word hunt, followed by the circle dot or circumpunct. So it's hunt for the circle dot. Hinge can also represent one of the 4 cardinal points of east, west, north, and south, and the circumpunct can also represent a variety of concepts: soul, monad, unity, gold, and the solar system, but most prominently the plumb bob and the plumb line that lands over the center of a circle. H can be a configuration for the solstices, and it can also represent Jacob's ladder and his ascent into faith and hope leading to the summit of charity, according to the Freemasons. Now let's switch gears to discuss the second line of the stone. The first symbol on the second line looks like a cross of Lorraine to me, which at the time was called a patriarchal cross. This is a Knights Templar and Masonic symbol that is used to indicate the signature of the office of the Grand Encampment, meaning who runs the temporary lodgment of a camp. This symbol group was a code within a code. The name William Wallace appeared, or more specifically the medieval Gaelic name Uliam Ulas, using the mirror image of ILLI and ALLA to decipher the name, with the remaining letters borrowed from the letters above. Perhaps a famous sword that Wallace wielded that was never found will ultimately be found if a treasure exists. The symbol after the cross of Lorraine is a triangle of 3 dots. This is a Masonic honor points and is used to indicate a member's name, signature, title, and is also used for abbreviations instead of a period. One word that I've never seen or heard outside of my Freemasonry readings is inculcate, which means to instill an attitude, idea, or habit by persistent instruction. And Freemasons teach their messages through repetition. The following quote in Latin by William Wallace seems to divulge his Masonic past. When I was a boy, the priest, my uncle, carefully inculcated upon me this proverb, which I then learned and have ever since kept in my mind. I tell you the truth, liberty is the best of things, my son. Never live under any slavish bond, or never live like a slave. Inculcate is the one word that all Masons become very familiar with because the moral law inculcates love of God, your neighbor, and yourself. Latin was one of the 8 languages that Wallace spoke. All in all, the Masons might have revered the sun and moon, but it appears to me that they were not worshippers of these celestial entities. The sun symbolized an awakening of the consciousness, and the moon represented the measurement of time, from the root word me. Think about it, time does not exist without consciousness. Light is a euphemism for enlightenment of the mind, body, and spirit. If the Masons are Satan worshippers, they certainly did it with love, relief, and charity. Symbols are like murals. Not all the populace could read in medieval time, but all could certainly grasp the concept of symbols, humankind's pathway to communication. The simplicity of symbols nears truth. The architect Hiram Abiff, who designed Solomon's temple, is revered by the Freemasons. I found one flaw in the Mason's story about him. Hiram Abiff, the widow's son, was the Tyrian architect of Solomon's temple. Hiram means noble, high-born, or king to the Phoenicians, and Abiff means his father. So the name Hiram Abiff translates into something like his father king. However, if Hiram's father is dead and his father was the king, wouldn't that make Hiram a king? So who allegorically was Hiram Abiff? And what does this symbolize? Are we all lost and abandoned people but a king inside? A simple overview of the stone's translated message from Middle English is sword, word, ord, find below, God, Ilium Ulas, to the circle dot, king betray. The levels of hidden meanings in these symbols are much more complex and are documented in detail in my Oak Island Prophesy series. One last observation is in order. I became curious as to the angles that the square and compass illustrations displayed, and discovered something rather interesting. The angles on each side of this representation look to be under 25 decimal degrees, and in fact looks like the 23.4 decimal degrees for the tilt of the Earth. This next illustration looks to be over 25 decimal degrees, and in fact looks like the 26.4 decimal degrees of the magic numbers 264. What can't be explained by science is magic. The eye of the providence may hold the key because this translation says to the circle dot. There's a number of symbolic items that allegedly have been unearthed on Oak Island that may or may not be connected to the Masons, such as a stone triangle, hand-worked heart-shaped stone, a wrought iron square, and a carved G on the bottom of an up-ended granite boulder. I'm not done connecting the dots to the grand architect of the universe, and next video takes my research into a different culture and context, who inevitably arrives on the shores of the New World to leave their mark. Thanks for watching. Please like, ring the bell, subscribe, share, and comment to support my channel.